Alright, here we go with day one notes. This is the video I said I'd put on my blog tonight. So, adding and subtracting matrices. First of all, let's just get some definitions of vocabulary out of the way. A matrix basically is just numbers that are organized by rows and columns. Sometimes you may hear it be called an array of numbers, but basically it's numbers organized in a row and column. So this is what a matrix would look like. It would have two rows going across this way, and then it has two columns going down this way. So we would call it a 2 by 2 matrix, 2 rows, 2 columns. Matrices can be represented using brackets or capital letters. For example, to represent matrix A, you may see it just listed as capital A, or you may see the capital A within brackets. Whenever we do matrices, we always do the dimensions, we list rows by columns. So when it says like a 2 by 5, what that means is that the matrix has 2 rows and 5 columns. A 3 by 1 would have 3 rows and 1 column. A 3 by 1 would look like that. Looks kind of funny because it's got the three rows in it. Rows go horizontally, and then the 1 column, columns go up and down. Just think about like columns on a building. A square matrix just means that the number of rows equal the number of columns, like a 3 by 3 or 4 by 4. The address is a location of a number in the matrix. Basically, we use lowercase letters to do that. So, for example, A with a subscript 23 here means that the number is located in matrix A. That's what the A tells us. But it's row 2, so the first number here tells me the row, and then column 3. That's the second number. So this is the row, and that number is the column. So, for example, if we were looking at this matrix here, which the dimensions of this matrix would be 2 rows, because there's 2 horizontal rows there, and it would be 4 columns, so this would be a 2 by 4. If we were trying to find the address A23, what we would want is row 2. So here's row 1, here's row 2. We would go to row 2, and we would be looking at the 3rd column. So here's column 1, column 2, column 3. So this number right here, 0, would represent A23. Let's just do another one here just to shore it up. If I wanted A14, this would mean row 1, so I'd go to row 1, and then the 4 would tell me the 4th column. So this would be row 1, column 4. That would be -1. Okay? So it's just a little info about matrices there, just to kind of give you some background. I don't know if you've had any stuff on matrices, but that gives you an idea. Now let's talk about the adding and subtracting. In order to add and subtract, they have to have the same dimensions. So 2 by 3 and a 2 by 3, a 3 by 3 and a 3 by 3, a 2 by 5 and a 2 by 5. In order to add and subtract, they have to have the same dimensions. And the way that you add and subtract them is you just take the numbers that have the same address, and those are the ones you add or subtract, or basically the numbers that are in the same position. And your answer will be the same dimensions as your matrices that you begin with. So let's look at a couple examples of adding and subtracting. Alright, so we've got matrix A here, which matrix A in this case, we have 2 rows and we have 3 columns. So this is a 2 by 3, and then matrix B, 2 rows, 3 columns. So since they're both 2 by 3s, we can add them up. So when we do A plus B, what we're going to do is we're going to add the numbers in the corresponding positions. So the 2 right here, this is row 1, column 1. Okay? So over here I'm going to go row 1, column 1. So when I do A plus B, I'm going to take the 2 and add the 2 and get a 4. Okay? And then I just continue along that row and do the same thing. I'm going to add up row 1, column 2, row 1, column 2. So 1 and -3 gives me -2. And then I'm going to add up row 1, column 3, and row 1, column 3, and -1 plus 5 is 4. And that gives me my first row in my answer here. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing for the second row here. So I'm going to take -1 and -3. That's -4. 3 and 7 is 10, and 4 plus 0 is 4. And there is my answer for adding A plus B. And I can do the same thing for A minus B. The order does matter here. You do have to take matrix A and subtract matrix B, but again, you do the same exact thing. You'll subtract the corresponding position. So I'll take 2 minus 2, which is 0, 1 minus a negative 3. It's 1 minus a negative, so that becomes a plus there. So 1 plus 3 is 4. And then negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. And then we'll do the same thing for the second row. Negative 1 minus a negative 3. That's actually going to become plus 3, so that becomes a 2. 3 minus 7 is negative 4. And 4 minus 0 is 4. Okay, so that's adding and subtracting. Now, we also can do this. We can take a matrix and multiply it by what's called a scalar, which that simply just means you're going to multiply by a number. We call this scalar multiplication. But what you're going to do here, when it says 3a, all I'm going to do is take every number in matrix A and multiply it by 3. So 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, and that's called scalar multiplication. But then we can also do a combination. So we could do scalar multiplication and we can do the subtraction as well. So the 3a, we just did in example 3 here. That's 3a. But then we're going to subtract 2b. So if I did 3a, let me just write those in there. That's 3 times a. Now I'm going to subtract, okay, and now let's go ahead and do 2 times b. Now notice I'm not multiplying by a negative 2 because I put the negative right there. So I'm just going to multiply this by 2. So it's going to be 4, negative 6, 10, negative 6, 14, and 0. And now I'm going to do my subtraction problem. So when I do that, my final answer here comes out to be 6 minus 4, which is 2, 3 minus a negative 6, so that's going to become 3 plus 6, which is 9, negative 3 minus 10 is negative 13, and then negative 3 minus a negative 6, again, that becomes a positive, so that is 3, 9 minus 14 is negative 5, and 12 minus 0 is 12. And that is my answer. And notice all of my answers are 2 by 3s, and that was what I started out with, was a 2 by 3. So tomorrow, when you come into class, I'm going to have you work on these at the beginning of class, and then we'll move forward from there. See you guys in class tomorrow.